So good evening. We have a nice small group this evening. So um, I thought we'd talk some more about meditation and just get an idea of how that works for each of us to just describe how it is that you meditate, what your goals are, what your objectives are, and how's that sound? Want to do that?
Sounds, yes, indeed.
All right, Doug,
Amazing.
you're up.
I'm up. What are my goals? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, yeah. Just first of all, like how would you define it? And secondly, uh, what are you trying to get out of it? And are you getting what you're trying to get out of it? And those kinds of just kind of your general take on meditation, what it is.
Meditation is quieting my body and mind that I can get information from the high self that sees the big picture and the greatest good. And in the end is the creator that I want the conscious mind to be associated with. And it would be through images or words or impulses or dreams or
Yeah, yeah. So the higher self, you're trying to get in
yes.
touch with that.
Yes, and listening and knowing the difference between information from the higher self and just mechanical fantasies and associations and all that. And it's becoming better. But yeah, it's opening up that communication channel to the high self.
What do you mean by mechanical fantasies?
Oh, just the mind. The mind. It just keeps spinning, right? It's like the heart. It just boom, boom, boom. It just keeps spinning ideas out, and different parts of the shadow self that I have might go in this direction or this direction, this direction, but the high self would see what's really needed so that it would say, it would give information that would be what would be in the greatest good for me and for others.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds great. But what does that feel like, Doug? How do you know you make connection with that?
It's usually when I'm very relaxed or when I first wake up in the morning after I've slept or get very relaxed with meditation, or I hit some sort of peak with my music compositions, or it really happens when it spontaneously, whenever it wants. It's not something my conscious mind controls, which is good.
Yeah, good. So when you do make connection with your higher self, is there like a physical feeling, a psychic feeling, or emotional, or any
Yeah,
of that?
there's an emotional feeling, and it's an integrated feeling of a that's right. I know that's right. Clear conscience, bodies lined up, emotions are lined up. Integration, right? That was one
Yeah,
of Gurdjieff's big ideas, that we're a three-brained being: mind, body, emotional center, moving center, body, and energy. And they're whacked out. They're not in line. And to remember
yeah,
yourself, they have to be lined up. And then you're present in the now. So it's I know that's an idea from the high self.
yeah.
And
No, that's great.
yeah.
Is there? I know there's a spiritual component. I'm sure you would say it's a spiritual experience. Is there any religious? Do you make any religious connotations with it, or is it framed by religion in any way in your mind?
Ah, by religion. I really think of religion at this point in my life as images that are really just explaining the creator's energy and power and force and design. and my life in that to create an existence. Like we're in creation. There's so much going on everywhere. There's a zillion kinds of this kind of dog and that kind of lion and this kind of tree. And it's all, and I'm a part of it. And as I work toward getting in higher octaves,
Yeah.
I know I need to connect more and more with the self. I know that's the goal. I know that's the aim.
Uh-huh.
That's the
And
aim.
so how do you define the self?
Self it's the eternal entity that is a part of the infinite creator God. And in this solar system, it's represented by and is the Christ, the Son of God, that is the spark of divinity in me and which is in everyone.
So it is you.
Yeah. not Doug Jamel, but not Doug Jamel. Nobody's name. No, it's this, and it's as I'm perceiving it more, it's very quiet. It's very like the be still and know. Famous. Ramana Maharshi, the great Hindu yogi, said, the entire formula is be still and know I am God. He said that is all you need to practice for self-realization. That's really deep, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So have you meditated and asked a specific question and received a definite answer from within?
Yeah. Yes. And I'm working on that more and more. And yes.
Yeah.
And
And
I want
how?
to get good at that, and I need to practice.
Yeah. So how are you trying to get good at it? That's an interesting question.
Well, it's really, you know, it's funny. It's just so funny. Everything's about the basics in life. Everything's about, oh, having trouble, go back to the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting still, getting comfortable sitting still for longer and longer times if need be. Sitting erect, breathing deeply to get the oxygen into the system, relaxing, feeling in the moment. And then with the techniques that you've taught, Michael, they've been a game changer. They're game changers. The Axis Mundi we talked about the other day, the Axis Mundi, the light along the spine. I mean, this is a part of what I do now.
Cool.
It feels so natural and right.
With inner guidance, the way that I've been experiencing it recently, and it's not that I haven't experienced it that way all along, but some things you just don't notice or you don't articulate, so it feels like it's the first time I'm really seeing it. But I find that inner guidance, which is what we're talking about, right? Going to the self and getting that most accurate overall bird's eye view of our whole situation and really everything, and then guiding us from that perspective. What I find is that a lot of times it comes through my body, not my mind. And the way it happens is, like, say if I'm driving down the street and all of a sudden my body wants to turn left, it's like, and so I turn left and it feels right, but I'm feeling it in my body. So it's like there's an intelligence that is coming so quickly that if I try to slow it down with my mind and analyze it or get quiet and go within and ask a question, it's already too late. It's already come and gone.
Yeah, interesting.
But my body is like right there, just boom, boom. And I'll share this. I don't know. I'm sure some people will listen to it and think I'm absolutely out of my mind. But I have friends in the order, friends who are teachers, and they corroborate me on this. More than one person has told me that sometimes in the course of their teaching career, as a priest in the order or afterwards or whenever, they would go to teach a class to a group of people, not knowing what they were going to teach. And they stood up, got behind the podium and got ready to speak with nothing, no preparation, not even an idea. Yeah. But all we did was we'd open our mouth and start making a sound as though we were going to speak.
Yeah.
And the mouth, the tongue, everything would just kick in and say the words that needed to be said. And it was that way, like just in the first few seconds, right? And then once you get the gist of it, then the mind engages. But to start it off, it was just simply, just start to say a word and the words will form themselves. So that shows me that there's a lot of intelligence in the body and that it's directly, maybe even more directly connected to self than the mind.
That's so interesting. I really believe that. That makes
Have you experienced that too?
Yes, yes. This body, when people, this is so ignorant. Oh, it's just the flesh. It's just the body. Just the body. What a creation. Are you kidding me? The nervous system, the body, trillions of cells, a trillion times more intelligent than my conscious mind. I mean, the body, you can't. So the body, the God in every body book. Yes, the body, the physical body.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And I knew a woman one time, back in the 70s, she worked she was the mother of one of the priests in the order, and met her out in the field. And she worked at a company where she had to run a 10-key adding machine. And that's back in the day when, there was nothing digital. It was all mechanical. You push the button and it would depress, and then you had to crank it, after each number so it would print the number and add it up. She could do that so fast you could barely see her hands move. It was just, she was typing like this, just that fast. And I asked her how she could do that. How do you manage that? She said, well, if I stop to think about it, I can't do it.
Yeah.
But I cannot think. It was like, reading the number, her eyes are reading the numbers, bypassing the brain altogether and going right to her hand.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people say that, like, in dancing, if you stop to think about it, you can't dance.
Can't do it, no.
And that's body's connection with the soul right there, the music being the language of the soul.
Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has, the body has memory in it. It has memory in it. Did you know back in the day in the 70s, Paul Albert, he was in the Holy Order of Mass. He took life vows. I went to university with him. Do you remember him at all?
I don't think so. The name doesn't ring a bell.
He was at 20 Stone, just a wonderful guy. And we used to, I think we decided to go to San Francisco at the same time. It was like that David Hamilton came to Pittsburgh and gave a lecture, and it just clicked to us that we're supposed to go to San Francisco. So we used to sit around and look at words, like starting with sun, and then it was cell, self, cell, self. So there's the people that invented language they were conscious beings, I would imagine. Language, I mean, it's the tool of the creator, right? One of our big tools. But self always made sense. And the body is made up of cells that are little solar systems and energy transformers. It's really amazing.
I know. It's a pretty deep rabbit hole.
Oh my God. And you know what? Nobody understands it. Nobody understands it because it's just so profound.
Yeah, but we can feel it. We can feel it.
Feel it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't understand it, but we can sure experience it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so I have been studying prompt engineering for ChatGPT. And what that is learning how to write the best questions or prompts for the artificial intelligence. And there's even ways to ask it to tell you how to ask it the best questions.
Oh my God, this is Chat
Yeah,
GPT. Here we go.
yeah. And
Yes.
so I've been
Excuse
I
me,
was working on yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're actually starting to use Chat GPT.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I just use it to do editing and maybe rewrite something that I wrote to see if I'm missing something, that kind of thing. But I studied it for several hours today, and while studying, experimenting with how to ask it the best questions, and then ask it in such a way that it would ask me in turn its own questions to help clarify what I was asking. So we went back and forth like that. And it made me think that if this technology, which draws on just almost an astronomically huge amount of data, um, that it can answer questions intelligently and well, but it's so dependent, the quality of its answers is so dependent on how you ask the question.
Yes.
It makes me wonder just how big a disconnect there might be between our minds and the self.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Like,
Excellent point.
are we
Excellent point.
asking anywhere near intelligible questions?
Nope. A large percentage. Nope.
Yep. Yep.
Please go on. That's the really good
Yeah.
point.
Well, it's because I forget who was it that said that if you ask the right question and you're like the answer to the problem is in the question. You
I've
ask the
heard that,
question
and
correctly.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard that. I like that. But please
Yeah.
go on. You're on a flow with this. Please don't stop.
Well, so it's like you ask the question, you formulate your question, and how can you gauge whether it's a good question or not? And I think it's just simply by the way it feels, or
I love
the
that.
way it resonates, right?
Yes, resonance.
Yeah, it's
There's a
like
vibration.
you write music, so you
Yes,
know how that feeling goes.
yes,
You get a certain pattern of notes, and you define the next move
yes.
by feel, not by intellect.
By feel. Does it
Yeah,
feel good? Does the sound make me feel good? That's the number one most important criteria
yeah, yeah,
for all my compositions. How does it feel? How does it make me feel?
yeah. And as a writer, I know that's true too, because if I'm writing something, if the word that I want to use doesn't sound right, I don't use it. It has to say, hearing is a
Yes,
form of feeling. So if it doesn't feel right, then I find another way until it does feel right.
yes.
And then, it's more likely to be, accurate or true if
That word
it's,
resonance is very important, isn't it?
yeah, which is strange in itself, because if linguistic truth, or that kind of symbolic uh, representation of truth is wedded to the sound of the words that are used to describe that, I mean, that just means everything is more interlaced and interdependent than even we can imagine. If meaning is connected to sound, if sound has meaning, right? And if meaning has a sound, that kind of interconnect. In other words, if we can tell if something is true simply by the way it sounds, or how it feels, that indicates a connection that is so deep, that is so far beyond the mind, that we can't even conceive of how that works.
Yes, I really agree with that.
Because what's thinking, right? What's thinking when you're writing a piece of music or I'm writing a paragraph? What's doing the thinking? I mean, there's a little bit of intellectual stuff going on, but once you get in the flow of it, the mind tends to just become a channel at that point, right? I'm sure that's how
Yeah.
you experience it, right?
Yes, yes, yes. It just flows.
Yeah. So
Like
who's doing the flowing?
it's the self. I mean, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Now that's an excellent point, Michael. The resonance, the feeling. You know, if I may share this, it's something I aim at doing. Gurdjieff was a holy man. He's called the Rascal Saint, and so much of what he said resonates as completely true. And he fully acknowledges Jesus Christ as as a matter of fact, God of the universe in flesh. I mean, he said the Bible is objective truth. I mean, it's really fascinating. But he said prayer. He said whatever you do mechanically can be lost. It doesn't help you grow to another octave. But what you want to do is conscious. And he gave a way of praying that was so helpful, and I like to share it with you. And it's just going very slowly and feeling each and every word. And when I do this, I take my time, I say one word until I feel it and it feels settled and it feels right. And then I'll go to the next. And then until the picture is formed, and I just take my time, and then something really beautiful resonates in me. And I know that that's a prayer that will be answered.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. That's slow. It's like Tai Chi, that slow movement. Because we're just running around like chickens, you know.
Yeah.
The whole human race.
You know, there's that other aspect of prayer by rote, you know, where we recite prayers that we've memorized, like the Our Father or the 23rd Psalm, something like that. And that doesn't matter either. I mean, we're not even thinking of the words. We're just strictly in the sound and the cadence of it, you know?
That's right. That's
And
right.
and yet that's so powerful too.
Yes. Yes. I say the Our Father every night before I go to sleep. And I love the Our Father. Gurdjieff said, if you understood the Our Father, you'd understand all of his work. Interesting.
Yeah.
To be partners doing the will of God, the Father, which is something I need to find out more about. And you certainly have been doing for a long time, you know, in a higher octave.
Well, you know, the thing that about praying like that, just praying the sound of it, like the rosary too. You know, we say you know, if you say the rosary, it's a mantra.
Yeah.
I mean, the words have meaning, just like the words of most mantras do, but essentially it's a mantra. So saying the rosary, you know, it doesn't matter what kind of beads you're using, you know, whether it's Catholic beads or Buddhist beads or whatever. You know, just that action of repeating sacred writing over and over, writing that has a melody to it, you know, has a rhythm and a cadence to it. That's a whole nother aspect, you know,
Yes.
that it can get us into a receptive state of mind, which is, you know, really what we're talking about is meditation. And And so that kind of prayer, that kind of mantra can quiet the mind and make us more receptive to where we can receive information uh, or a feeling or an experience of some kind. We can receive it directly and not from, not through the brain
Yes.
so much.
Yes.
Let's see what, give me a second here. Need to.
There's someone else in the class?
Yeah, Nichu is. And she just
this guy.
messaged and said, is Doug referring to Johann Wolfgang Goethe? Yeah, you're talking about Gurdjieff.
Gurdjieff.
Yeah.
Gurdjiff.
Yeah.
I mean, he's all over the internet.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Goethe was the, I think, well, he was a favorite of Rudolf Steiner.
Was he?
Yeah. And Nietzsche, was he, what was he Austrian or German? Do you know?
Goethe was German, I think.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah, anyway, so it's how this information comes to us. And really, the way the body, the body is such a part of the earth, and yet we don't understand the earth at all. We don't,
No.
all we see is the substance of the earth. We don't see the energies and the life moving through it. We just see what our eyes pick up, and that's a very small part of what's here. Like we don't see gravity. We don't see electromagnetic fields. We don't see, how the atmosphere, any of that. And yet we think we know what the earth is, right? And so when we ask questions of it, if we're asking from that such a limited framework, I don't see how it'd be possible to get any kind of an intelligible answer. Makes sense, right?
That's a good one. Yes, that explains it. That's so true. We think we know what we're looking at. It's just.
Oh yeah. And the more we think, of course, the less accurate, the less accessible, true wisdom seems. It's like we have no idea how to access it because we're so much in our head, right? We're trying to think it out. And of course that's necessary sometimes. I'm not anti-intellectual, but I'm saying that sometimes you have to go with the feeling. And then if you're good at that, and then you can also engage your mind, then you've got a lot going on. But but unless we can really feel in a very deep and wide way, that we're really connected with not just the earth we can see, but the energies that are all around us. And mostly, it's when we're around each other as people, we're getting these, streams of information from each other. But we tend to, project onto the other person what we think they are, what we wish they were, all kinds of filters between each other. We've erected between each other. Yes. And cut ourselves off from the knowledge of the energy that we're actually emitting. And that energy has an intelligence to it, and a readable kind of intelligence, yes. Meaning that it has meaning to it. Like if I'm in the presence of another person, and I get a sense of their presence, just what the nature, the quality of the radiation they're putting off. Yes. Which has a lot to do with their mind and emotions, right? I'm not talking just yes. body heat. I'm talking yes. about the radiation that is informed by the thinking and the feeling. Yes. Then if I can tune into that, then I really get a greater sense of how to flow through the space with them. how to interact with them, in other words. How, even basic things like how close to stand to them, or what to say, what not to say, but mostly the feeling, that I put into my words. So, because that has to match what they are transmitting. It has to have a resonance to it.
That's
If it's
such
not,
a
it's
good
going to,
point.
yeah, otherwise it's dissonant, right? It's like hitting the
It's-
wrong key on the keyboard.
It's this. Well, it's an ugly wavelength.
Yeah, yeah,
It's an ugly wavelength. It's a wavelength that doesn't. It's not harmonious.
right. Yeah, I
It's
think that's one
disharmonious.
thing that makes social media so difficult, because we don't have that immediate. All of that has to come through what a person types in the comment box,
It's
and boy, howdy, that doesn't transmit much.
it's not. It's, you know what? It's not the same. It is
No.
not the same. Being with someone in 3D is warm and alive, but
Yeah. You know what Facebook should do is they should, instead of typewritten comments, they should have miniature videos where you see each other in real time.
doesn't Twitter have that?
Oh God, I don't know. I don't use Twitter.
Yeah, I think you can make videos on Twitter. That's a step closer. It just isn't. Yeah, I do know it. You know, my wife has this many social media,
Yeah, yeah.
and you know, many people have said when I've mentioned that, they say, "Boy, she's ahead of the game," because
Oh
it
yeah.
becomes
Yeah.
mass mind. It just becomes disharmonious for
Yeah, it's
some.
a free for all. It's a free for
It's a
all, that's
free
for
for
sure.
all. Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly right. And it's not.
Yeah. The other thing that that we're not aware of, but some people are the astrological influences that go to make up so much of what we feel at the very deepest level. And yet we're completely oblivious to it. I mean, the most that most of us can begin to detect is the influence of a full moon. If it's a full moon,
Yeah.
I can feel that, and I can feel a new moon and a waxing moon. But not much more than that, and I have to read the astrological bloggers to get an understanding of what's going on, and then I can make a connection. But just imagine how it would be to be that sensitive to the vibrations and the frequencies, the energy patterns that we swim in, to the degree where you would be able to feel the movement of the planets just by, knowing what they feel like, through doing your own research.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be just an extraordinarily different way to live. That's for sure. Because we're so outer focused. We're so intent on interpreting the world just by what we can see of the world, and and we do it in a verbal way. So that gets in the way of the feeling as well. So it's no wonder to me that
Yes, I
trying to
agree.
meditate and get an answer that means anything is just darn near impossible. It takes some really good mind control and practice to get uh, even minimally good at it.
Yes, yes. Well,
Right.
you're pretty good at it from your writings. Your writings just are hit me right here.
Oh, that's good to hear.
You
I,
know, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say that a lot of times my intellectual engagement with what I'm writing isn't as strong as my feeling. So I don't put a lot of stock in my brain, I guess.
No, no. Actually, you're one of the most clear writers I've ever read. Clear and simple, brevity, right to the point. That's exactly. I bought a book a couple months ago on Amazon Kindle. I love that because everything's in the computer and you can just read. and it's called brevity. And he said, we're so overloaded with words these days. People
Mhm.
want bing, 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 bing. They want clarity. Your writings
Right.
are that, Michael. They are. You don't
Well, thanks, Doug.
you don't
Yeah.
get wordy. I mean, you know what I mean. Gurdjieff was wordy on purpose, so that you'd have to struggle to understand what
Right.
he's reading. His whole
Right.
thing was that you have to work so hard, you have to struggle. I mean, that was his whole thing.
Yeah.
But
Well, my teacher was very brief in his wording.
what was he?
Yeah, he was. He just said it said what he had to say in as few words as possible, and it worked really well. Because it wasn't diluted. His ideas weren't diluted by a lot of um, language. So he was a real good role model for me in that. Uh, but also it's just I think we're at a crux now, or a cusp in the collective consciousness, where there's just too much. There's too much. So
Too
anything
much.
that's pared down to its simplest form is going to really stand out. So I practice writing like that every day. It takes a lot of practice to do that. So
No, you're a beautiful writer, and your content creates images that are life-giving.
that's really good to hear.
And it's,
Because
yeah, it's not like BS. Like you're just
right,
writing. I don't mean you, but a person's writing just to, like, what? It's like listening to the mainstream media. Like, what? Because you know that mostly they're following the story that they have to put out, that their
yeah,
bosses want them to put out. And it just doesn't. It's fake. But when you speak from the heart, you can feel it. That's, you know, you can feel when someone's talking from the heart. It feels right. So it gets back to that.
yeah. Well, I haven't always written that way, and I've made all the mistakes that other writers make too. I've written to impress. I've written to sound smart. I have
Yeah,
written to try to
yeah.
convince.
Thanks for
You
your
know,
honesty.
and I've tried to BS, certain things, you don't really know about. So you BS, fill it in with, if you can't dazzle
Oh
them
my
with brilliance,
gosh.
baffle them with bullshit, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but the advantage I have from having gone through all of those stages is that now I can spot it really easily.
Yeah.
The saying, you can't bullshit a bullshitter. So having
Right.
done my fair share of that,
Exactly. That's a great saying, isn't it? Yeah. So
so
the question arises, how can I don't want to speak for you because of your status, but how can I work on being more aligned so that I can ask the right kind of question? And I'm getting answers now, and it's simplicity. It's just heartfelt simplicity, a few words, a picture, and it's a feeling. It's putting a feeling up.
well, I would say, Doug, having heard your music, which is really quite beautiful,
Oh,
that
thanks.
that's the way you do it. So if you could find a way to ask your questions musically in such a way that you would understand the answer, that might be a real viable way for you to access your higher self and your innate wisdom, the wisdom of God that comes through you. That might work really well, but you'd have to experiment with that and see.
That really makes sense because music is to lift us up. It's to lift our feeling up into another dimension, and it does that because it's wavelengths of sound, right?
Mhm.
And some of the greatest minds that ever lived, J.S. Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, these guys were so brilliant. Bach wrote in the
Yeah.
1700s. I mean, that's equal to whoever designed the pyramid musically. in mathematically, it's just this amazing music. But they all wrote to God. They wrote to the higher being, you know,
Yeah.
and it raised
Yeah,
these stuff. Yeah, no, that. Thank you for the suggestion. I'm going to take that up.
yeah, that might work, you know. It
Yeah.
might not. I'm not saying, you know, I'm just suggesting it because I think that, you know, um, too often we try to, you know, to pick up a new skill spiritually, a new spiritual skill when we've already got one that works really well, you
Yeah,
know,
looking
and we
somewhere
just
that
don't.
we don't need to. It's already here. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
The Wizard of Oz, right? I'm already home.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. So this is, yeah. Did you know that the word meditate means to move to the center?
I didn't know that.
That's what the word actually means, and so it's and contemplation. Contemplate means something akin to connecting the dots. So if we go into contemplation, we're really looking out here, you know, in the world of thoughts and ideas and feelings and, you know, things that relate to the world and to the mind. But when we go within, see, the opposite direction of that is to go within, we're really leaving all of that behind. You know, everything sensory or intellectual or emotional, all of those things, we're distancing ourselves from those human experiences and entering into a space where none of that exists. So it's just it's interesting to me because I know those two words are sometimes conflated, and some people will say they're contemplating when what they're really doing is meditating, or you know, and the same goes with prayer. There are different functions that we tend to not be really clear on. But contemplation is an outward activity, spiritually speaking and mentally speaking. But meditation is an inner experience. And we're retreating away from everything that occupies us normally, including the body, the mind, the feelings, memory, everything is just starts to recede away.
Mm, yes.
So, and I know that there are lots of different kinds of meditation, you know, and they're techniques. And you know, there's mindfulness of Vipassana, there's Zen, there's, you know, all different kinds of meditation. Um, but there are basically two functions of mind, and one is to go within, and the other is to connect and make sense of sense making, and sense making on different levels. You know, really fine dimensions of meaning. You know, that's where we use contemplation, and contemplation is kind of like a conversation with God. Prayer is like speaking to God. Meditation is listening to God. Contemplation is like having an active, real-time conversation with that infinite intelligence.
Contemplation is a communication with the divine.
Yeah, yeah,
And you say it's out, meaning that you allow dots to be connected.
right. Because it's just like when you're putting together a piece of music, you're seeing how everything fits together, and you're doing it more intuitively than you are intellectually. You know, I mean, sometimes you can do it intellectually too, but you're feeling your way through it. So a conversation with the divine, you know, with the infinite is would have to be on that level, because you can't verbalize. There's so much that cannot be verbalized, but that can be understood in an ontological, in our being. It can be, we can understand it in our being, things that we cannot articulate like at all.
Yes.
So, and in order to communicate on that level, to, you know, to ask, or to, you know, enter into a question, might be a better way to put it. and then have God respond to that at that level of meaning. It has a language of its own, and we have to find, and that language at some point becomes symbol. It becomes symbolism. That's why we dream in symbols. Everything is like a metaphor. So that's where, and I would put music around that level too, because music in some ways is so symbolic. It has its own language that speaks directly to us, but we can't really put it into words. But we sure understand it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we can't articulate it, but we really know what it's saying to us.
Yes. It's a huge part of life.
Yeah.
Sound, huge part.
So the emphasis on questions, I think that's especially when it comes to inner guidance and going into meditation, asking a question with the purpose of receiving an intelligible answer. I think all of that has to be recognized for the limitation that it is, and that as we reach up higher in consciousness, we're going to access levels of awareness that this brain is not set up to register. And yet there's a deeper part of us that not only recognizes that, but speaks fluently in that language.
Wow.
So yeah. So that's where we have to start to, the integration process has to include that, right? We have to allow that level of consciousness, which is very fine, very high frequency, you might call it. We have to let that in and bathe in it, let marinate in it, so that it can do the subtle reorganization of this nervous system, the brain and the nervous system, so that more and more of it can communicate in and through us.
Yes.
So,
bathing in it, sitting in the light, just sitting in the light, letting the intelligence help me what it needs to do without my conscious direction, because conscious mind doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, and even if we think about it, I mean, our thoughts are so slow that we immediately, we jump out, we're off the tracks the minute we start to think about it sometimes, because it's coming through us. It's a living, moving thing that thinking only slows down and then stops it because it's dependent on that free flowing in order to be intelligible. So even thinking about it, we think about it verbally. It's very hard to just feel into something that real. So that's what meditation, that's what it can do for us if we don't try to make it do too much. It's like if we just go in and with that intention of going as far in and as high up as we can, like C.S. Lewis said in the Chronicles of Narnia. That's how he described where Narnia was. It was farther in and higher up.
Did he was talk about a writer, huh?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, he was.
Yeah.
He was something. If I may share this, years ago when I was in college in the early 70s, I guess, I was reading C.S. Lewis, and I memorized this, where he said, in Mere Christianity, a man that was merely a man would not have said the sort of things that Jesus said. He would either be on the level of a poached egg, or he is who he said he was. Worship him, but don't come up with any patronizing nonsense that he was just another great prophet. He has not left us that option.
Yeah. Lewis was quite the Christian
That's
apologist.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. The idea comes down to it's not what he said, it's who he was. That's the
Yeah, who he is.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and who he is. So
a great cosmic being, right?
well, the great cause. So this is where a lot of Christians get off. Is the great cosmic? In other words, Christ is not Jesus's last name.
Right.
We have to be real clear about that. And
no,
Christ,
I get the difference.
Christ is the being. Christ is the same being that the Greeks recognized as Apollo, as the Romans recognized as. I get them mixed up, Greeks and Roman gods, but
Egyptians, Ra, etc.
yeah, the Egyptians Ra. It was like the Lord of the Sun,
yeah.
And but to a modern, materialistic minded person, that sounds like we're worshiping the physical sun, because that's all they can see. But what people don't normally see is that there's life and intelligence everywhere, and that life and intelligence has a focal point in any place you find it, whether it's in a human cell or a solar system or a galaxy. It has a focal point through which it streams forth into itself, and that's a very that's a deep spiritual reality.
It streams into itself.
Yeah, because the sun, let's take the sun at the center of the solar system. It's there at the center of the solar system, but that's just the concentrated part of it. It actually fills the entire solar system with its radiance.
And life-giving, yes.
Yeah, and that part of that emanation is like a life wave. It has all of the intelligence within it that informs everything. So
absolutely true.
It's an intelligent system.
Yes.
That's all there is intelligence to it.
Yes. I mean, we couldn't see each other over the electronic airwaves without light between us. And
exactly.
Our dogs have light, and the dinner that I just had was life in it. And it's just so obvious when you put your attention on it.
Right. So, here again, it's like when we go into meditation, the farther we back away from the visible and explore into the invisible, then the more in touch we become with this universal intelligence and power and coherence. That's a good word for it, coherence. Then that gets us more in touch with reality. Whereas for the most part, we're not in touch with reality because we're just dealing with a very small slice of it. So I'm going to say that, that meditation is absolutely essential, for anyone really, because if any human being, if they rely strictly on their intellect, is not going to have a very good time of it. They're going to be socially maladapted. They're going to be have a sense of being cut off and isolated in a universe that is to them is meaningless, that has no sentience whatsoever. I just can't imagine a worse frame of mind to be in. So, but you can't really get a sense of the reality of the being that we live in without exercising that kind of meditative process where you back away from everything and go within, the very opposite direction that our senses want to take us, and deny ourselves, as Jesus said, unto death, as he said, which is like the death of the way we normally see things. and really connect with that, you know, and but even more than that, it's like to let it transform us. And the way it does that is literally transforms us by opening up centers in the brain that are, for most people, dormant, because we have so much more ability than we know of. And
Yes.
you know, we know of people, each other, who have extraordinary abilities in different walks of life, and there are people in history who have done remarkable things that seem miraculous to us today. And so we don't really know the full capacity of a human being. We don't know what
No.
we're capable of to
No.
the, you know, if we were fully connected with the infinite intelligence that we are surrounded by. So all of that, you know, if nothing else, it'll make you very humble, because you know that it's so much bigger than any of us, that all we can do is surrender to it. That's basically all there is. So
That's the
yeah, and I think that's what the Islamic, what the Muslims mean when they say the word Muslim means to submit. You know, that's the kind of submission they're talking about, is to submit to the ineffable. It's like
yes.
God, and you know, they rightly say God is the only God. That only God is God, right? And they keep it very simple in that way.
Yeah. I think I understand what you're saying.
I think I do too.
That was good. That really, that got, I love that vibration. That was wonderful. Whoa. You're a very good communicator, Michael. Really.
Oh,
I mean,
thank you. Thank
you have
you.
a gift. You have a gift.
I have my moments.
You have your moments for sure.
So, Nitu, is there, if you would like to chime in, if not, that's okay. But I give you the opportunity because I think we're pretty much at the end of our time. And it's been fun, Doug, to, you know, to have this kind of one-on-one chat. Oh, hi, Nitu.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, good
So,
evening. Good evening.
it was interesting, the the conversation today, and I just couldn't help thinking about sleeping and waking. That you need to really sleep well to be awake in the day, and you need to be awake in the day to sleep well. So how interconnected it is,
Yeah.
and also how these moments of meditation really are helpful for us to come back to our so many selves that we carry in ourselves, you know, because we're always scattered, we're excarnating all the time, sometimes to please people, sometimes to just keep your sanity intact, and many reasons, you know, we're excarnating. And in today's time, I think just to get a feel of who you are, you need these many small moments of meditation to understand everything that I'm doing. Is it only out of what I feel and think, or is there a greater good? So yeah,
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah, thanks so much.
That's really good. Thank you, Nitu. Appreciate
Thank you.
that.
Yeah.
Well, okay, it's a good time to stop.
Well, thank you, Michael.
Thank you for showing up.
You are fun.
Yeah.
It's important to have fun, right? I mean, what's wrong with fun?
I know, right?
Fun is great. It puts a smile on your face.
All right. Well,
All right.
have a good evening. And Nitu, I think you're probably in the beginning of your day. So
Oh yeah, it's 6:30 a.m.
Oh my goodness.
Where are you, Nitu?
I am in India, Mumbai.
Oh my goodness, India.
In Mumbai?
Yes.
Oh wow.
So many
thank
saints
you
from India.
Yeah, that's for sure.
That is.
Thanks for showing up, Nitu. It's always a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nitu. Good night. Good day.
Good night to you.
Thank you. She's sweet.
Bye-bye now.
All right. Thank you. Michael, be talking to you. Thank you.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
Good night.